Minister, agriculture has been the backbone of the Irish economy for many decades now, and it continues to be the largest economic sector in rural and regional Ireland. It's a world leader in beef and dairy production, and if we take 2019 as a reference year, total food exports were 14.5 billion. And within that impressive number, dairy accounted for 5 billion and beef accounted for 2.3 billion. So I'd like to thank the Rural Independents for bringing this motion forward to focus on the important issues facing agriculture. Our export markets in food agri total over 180 countries. And with a 50% multiplier being a conservative figure, we can see over 10 billion per annum being delivered to the Irish economy, with the beef sector alone counting for over 80,000 jobs at farm income and farm processing level. The Nitrates Directive, along with multiple competitive land use, is placing further pressure on dairy and beef farm incomes in particular. And climate legislation calling for increased management of bovine gas emissions are also going to bring their own pressures. So these must be managed through a managed dairy cull scheme with the assistance of farmers, and it must provide for an equitable dairy farmer retirement plan and for succession planning. The logic around the idea of reducing dairy cow numbers as a means of reducing overall agricultural emissions must be balanced also, Minister, against the financial risks for smaller farm holdings. Many of these will become unviable if they are forced to reduce their herd by between 10 and 20%. Beyond this, Minister, a cull scheme could also have the undesired effect of consolidating activities, particularly in the dairy farm sector, with more intensive farming methods occurring as a result, while reducing the number of farm families in the sector, with all of the consequent economic loss to the rural community. So I would ask that a cull scheme would be well managed and also looked at. A cull scheme will also add to the costs of milk processing fees, and this has to be borne in mind in terms of the future competitiveness of our export market. The idea of the cull scheme is also largely based around some portion of a greenwashing agenda, Minister, as we have not yet managed to properly analyse the general farm emissions. And it is the case that two dairy farms of two similar sizes can have very different carbon gas emissions based on the bovine species, the soil type, the pasture land, the nutritional additives and the lactation scheduling. So it is not a case that one size fits all. In addition, carbon sequestration on farms has not been properly characterised in Ireland as yet. The proportions of hedgerows, wetlands and forestry on individual farms has a significant impact to reducing the overall greenhouse gas emission. Ireland is one of the most efficient producers of grass and dairy beef, and being asked to reduce its output is hard to understand in terms of what is happening with South America and Brazil as they ramp up their production, Minister, and this must be borne in mind. I think also we need to look at the other pressures that are besetting farming in terms of slurry containment and the Nitrates Directive. So many farmers are already singularly invested and very expensive to the banks in terms of capacity that they have put on in the last number of years. Minister, I think you need to be careful in terms of your policy how this will affect those who are exposed to bank lending. So I think, Minister, we need to be very careful of where we are going here. I know you have said that you have the support of farming groups, and I welcome that in terms of management of any managed cull. And I think also a lot of the advices that have been given here earlier in terms of other forms of farming, particularly forestry, have to look at to offer mitigation to farmers and to give them other income streams to offset any cull that may happen.